Right. So, how do you remember how do you remember like your movie experience back then compared to how it is now?
Back then, like movies like Gone with the Wind, they were you didn't get as much advertising about them, and you didn't know as much about it. So when you got there, you were in suspense, and you got to look at it, and it was just something that you never forget because the movie was such um, made such an impact on you. You know?
Mm.
As in now, I look at a movie and they're coming out a lot faster. And I remember another one, basically when Sidney Poitier came out with Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and things like those. Those are movies that I will never forget. But the movies that they come out today, I see one, I forget it. I see the
Yeah.
next one, I forget it. I'm just waiting for another movie. I've
Right.
seen it, but it's not impactful. It doesn't
Yeah.
catch, it doesn't remain with me the way the movies back then did.
Yeah, like feels like back then movies had a point, like they had a story, they had a message they wanted to get across.
Yeah, they hit home. They were relevant, and they had more material that was relevant. That, like you said, came across and
Yeah.
stuck with me, and they kind of were heartfelt too.
What about movies like Malcolm X? How does that impact your life?
Well, that's a recent movie, right?
But
Malcolm
it's
X
talking
movie.
about, the
Yeah.
history of.
Well, Malcolm X, the movie brought back a lot of roots of Malcolm X, a lot of black experiences back that I actually lived through and witnessed. And some of it is fiction, some of it's true. Most of it's true because it had to do with what was going on back in the 50s, 60s, and even further back. But there's a time that Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and a lot of the other civil rights leaders, Stokely Carmichael, and the Panthers, and people were there, and I lived through those eras to see what was going on.
Yeah, because it's just tougher to find movies that are like as impactful today, just because there's so many of them being made, and you only hear about the ones that where the studios spend the most money putting
Yeah,
them
when
on
you look
TV
at,
and stuff.
we had superheroes back then, Superman, and a lot of the um, X Men and places like back then, but they weren't as fictional as they are.
Yeah,
I mean, I realize we don't have a flying man, but it's something that people looked up to and look for a hero. But now they come into with vampires, and we had vampires back then, but they weren't. And we had the King Kongs, and we had all those kind of things. But they're going a lot further now with their imagination.
yeah,
And
uh,
I guess the kids now it relates to the times because everything now is more advanced. See, we didn't have computers like they have now.
yeah,
The computers now it's real time. You get to uh, play on the computer, the Facebook, you got Instagram, you got
What do you
whole.
feel about social media in general? Think
I
about
love
the
it,
time.
but I didn't grow up with it, so it's a lot more difficult for me to adapt to it as with the kids nowadays. I guess a 5 or 6 year old kid could probably do more with a cell phone or a computer than I could because they grew up with it and playing Pac-Man. I know my grandsons, I used to play Pac-Man and some of the other things with them on the Nintendo, and they'd kill me.
Yeah.
And
So, going back to something you mentioned earlier, like vampires, um, do you remember watching?
Dracula.
Yeah, like or any type of scary movie when you were younger, and if you could kind of like relate that to like modern day scary movies and how they like kind of like compared to each other.
Yeah, we had Dracula and we had Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein. Um, these movies were a lot of blood and gore, and I guess they were kind of when you look back, they're kind of stiff and methodical, you know. But nowadays you have like Twilight. I don't know if you know Twilight.
Oh, yeah.
They're more animated and they're faster and they change things around as far as, you know, you see them here and then you see them over there. You know, it's a lot faster. And
They're more violent too, right? Like when you watch a movie from like the 50s or 60s, like, oh, you know, Frankenstein like knocks a guy over and he dies, but that's pretty much it. Whereas some of these like modern day horror movies, it's just a completely different.
Yeah. And they actually show the blood and the
Yeah.
body and going through the motions of tearing the pieces. They would stop at a certain point. And then you get the picture, you know, this
Knowing that
he's
kids are
dead.
probably looking at
Yeah,
movies,
and the worst part is that they want kids to watch it. That's why they're making them. 'Cause
Yeah. So a lot of
the
violence.
craziest part about that is that's their target audience is they want kids to see it, but for some reason they keep on making them like more and more gory. So on to something more positive. What were some of your favorite movies growing up, and if you could like elaborate on why those movies like stood out for you?
Growing up, actually I like Bonanza. I like a lot of cowboy movies. Bonanza was a family, and they came on every night, basically, at a certain time. It was a family night gathering. After we eat dinner, then we go and watch. We'd be set for Bonanza, and we'd sit around and talk about it and watch the Big Valley. That was another cowboy movie. And this was like in the late 60s. And I Spy, Bill Cosby, and who else was there? Those are basically the ones that I grew up with.
Were you more attracted to a certain kind of movie, like cowboys or comedy or like action or?
Well, like I said, I liked Ed Sullivan because they featured a lot of dance movies, Job at Five, and I still haven't been able to think of the guy's name that died. Look it up on your thing. He used to do the
Yeah.
Ryan Seacrest, he posted it
I think his computer worked better.
All right, I'll look it up. Take a quick break.
That's something, you know, this thing here.
Yeah.
We used to have like this represents a lot of things. This is a computer, and we used to have mainframe computers that would cover the whole wall, and it's a boom box. We used to carry a boom box on our shoulder.
You don't see that anymore.
And a camera. We used to have cameras all over the place. That, you know, so, and now we have all this in like a flashlight. We just have.
Our teacher was talking about everybody in the classroom doing this, doing a selfie.
Oh,
Selfie
the
picture.
Dick Clark.
Dick Clark.
Dick Clark, yeah.
Dick Clark.
Oh yeah, I remember
Dick Clark. Yeah.
So he died.
Yeah, he died about three or 4 years ago, I guess. And, but he did a lot for the black. I remember when I was watching Jackie Wilson on his show. You guys probably don't know who Jackie Wilson was. And Sam Cooke. He featured a lot of black artists back there. And like I said, we had segregation then. So finally, we kind of Little Richard, we kind of brought them together so that the whites danced on this side, the black danced on that side, you know, and then there was a revolution with the whites, and they decided, hey, if we're going to see this, we want the blacks had different album covers, you know. They'd have Pat Boone or somebody on the album cover. And then the whites said, hey, well, if I buy it, I want to see a black face on black music. Don't be trying to fool me, you know. So
White faces
that
on
happened.
black music.
Yeah. So it was
So
good.
what about Little Richard? You know, they said he was one of the revolutionaries of rock and roll, and you know, and then they had like the white people, the white rock and roll, and I guess I don't know.
Well, like Little Richard was, he was very controversial. He did his makeup. He was different from anybody, you know. And he made some good music back in the 50s and 60s. And the whites would listen to it, but they had it screened so that Pat Boone would do a white version, and blacks would listen to it. But the whites wanted to listen to
The black version.
they wanted to listen to the real
real
song,
deal, right.
the real deal. They didn't want to have this makeover, so they got rid of Pat Boone, moved him out, and actually they made more money than Little Richard on the movie, on his music. So Little Richard sued him, and Little Richard was kind of responsible for the Beatles coming over and a lot of music in England. So he got a lot of money. And he's still alive today. I was watching him recently on YouTube. That's another the media function that you can go back and look at. So he's still alive, and he's out of the secular music, and he's doing Christian music now.
Oh, that's good.
And he's in a wheelchair, but he's still alive. He's in his 80s.
And growing up, were there any films that your parents didn't want you to see, either because they were like inappropriate or anything like that?
Not really. They basically just wanted to not watch too much TV. That was the basic thing. But the filming back then, there were basically no restrictions on what you could watch, because everything was basically monitored by the FCC, and you weren't going to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even on like Isle of Lucy, they didn't want to imply anything, so they had like Lucy sleep in a separate bed than Ricky, just because they didn't even want them like on the same bed, just because of what that would imply.
Yeah.
So things were pretty different back then.
Now in the 70s, I was grown up, and you know, I would kind of wake up and see my kids trying to watch the Playboy movies, you know, late at night, you know. Maybe at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, and I would restrict them from watching certain things because we had advanced TV during that time.
Yeah. And it's pretty crazy how things change. It's just when it gets easier to get everything, that includes a lot of the bad stuff, right?
Yeah. And the media, I think it goes further when you look at like the telephone, you know, as part of the media also, because it spreads stuff. And then like we had 971, I remember one of my daughters calling the joke thing, the joke line.
That was a joke.
It was like $600
That
a
was a
phone
joke.
bill. And then they
Crack
had,
of your bill be high as I don't know what.
that was a joke. So yeah, it's crazy. Fortune, and they had all kind of gimmicks to get money out of you.
Yeah.
With the phone bill, television. They want you to call in for this and call in for that. You apply for this, and you know you just get caught up.
Yeah.
Radio commercial. They sell cars. They sell TVs, concerts. They introduce you to all the what's going on in the community and what you can do. So that's it.
Right, are there any films that you think like really influenced you, either because like the message, like you still like think about it now, or just because like it was like you know, like kind of like made an impact on your life? You know, negative or positive.
Let's see. Imitations of Life was a movie that was made in the 60s. And it was featured Mahalia Jackson. She was a gospel singer. And it was about a black girl who was biracial. And her mother was black. And so she started to pass for white. And she shunned her mother because she could get more out of life as a white person than she could as a black person. And so the gist of the story is the mother sent her to school and educated her, and she just strayed away from her mother. And her father, he wouldn't own her, so she never knew who her father really was. But her mother got sick, and then the daughter had denied the mother, and then finally, when the mother got sick and she was about to die, and she called her daughter, and somebody called her daughter and had her come to see her mother. The mother basically died, and she was trying to say that, you know, hey, I love you, Mama, I love you, don't go, you know. And it's a movie that was impactful because it showed feelings, and it was basically how you should treat your parents, and
Yeah.
you know, no money is not everything, you know.
Yeah, it was more about like the message than like the drama, right?
Yes, the message, how to treat people, how to be serious about life and what life is about. It's not about, you know, material things. It's about, you know, being who you are and knowing who you are and doing what you're supposed to do, treating people the way that they, you know. It's not a, like, I guess Teddy Pendergrass said, 60, 40, 70, 30, love, you know, you love equally. Yeah.
Oh, do you remember going to a drive-in?
Not back when I was a kid. When I was an adult, I went to drive-in, basically here in Los Angeles, because we didn't have too many drive-ins back then. In fact, I wasn't driving until I got to the store. Yeah, I went to the drive-in. They had the Century Drive-In.
No.
I don't know if you ever heard of Century Drive-In?
I've been to the, where is that one at? There's one in,
They had one in Gardena.
oh, Paramount. That's the one I go to, yeah.
Yeah, they had one right across from where Hollywood Racetrack used to be, the Century Drive-In.
Yep.
That
So-
was in the early 70s.
So, how does how do those experiences compare? Like going to a movie theater, or watching it at home, or going to a drive-in?
A drive-in was a lot of fun because you'd be in your car and you can listen to, you know, in a movie you were kind of restricted. You can't make noise and you do what they want you to do, and you have to sit there and you go out and you get your popcorn. But when you're at the drive-in, you can talk and you can converse, you can be loud, you can play music and do what you want to do. You can go and get your popcorn and your stuff, and you can still be watching the movie while you're doing that, as opposed to getting up and going there. So driving was a lot of fun and personal, and you know, kissing and hugging and all that kind of stuff. You got a lot of privacy.
All right, cool. I think that's pretty much it.